Hi everybody, welcome back to this week's chapter of The Outed, Chapter 11. Thanks for joining us. Let's start with Mitch. Mitch. The logic was simple. I hurt. I needed help. Instacare would put my arm back together. They needed money. I needed money to pay Instacare. I had no money. I was paid up for 6 months to the dojo and Sensei Robert. If I could get a refund, I could pay Instacare. They could fix my arm. I could go to Harding's, earn some more money, buy some pants, maybe even survive. My head pounded. Everything hurt. I was exhausted. No matter how I held it, the arm screamed at me. I left my truck in the parking lot, clutched the blanket around my bare legs, and walked to the door of the dojo. I was so thirsty, and needed to pee again. I hadn't slept, was afraid to eat, even if I had the money, because I didn't think I could keep it down. I didn't remember the trip here from the Overlook. What would I even say to Sensei Robert? Through the window, I saw him sitting at his desk, staring at his computer. The door was hard to open with one hand. I limped in. My feet hurt. Something, probably glass, stabbed into my right foot with each step. How much would Instacare charge for that? Sensei Robert's door was open. He came in Sunday mornings to do his paperwork. I pushed forward into his little office and fell onto one of the seats. Then I saw my bloody footprints on the tile. I'm not going to make a very good impression. A fan hummed beside his desk, and he had an air freshener to mask the scent of sweat and cleaner. In the reflection of one of his framed and glass certificates, I saw the swollen mess of my face. I had to stay strong, because this was the only way, the only chance I could get money. Sensei Robert stared at me. Then his eyes narrowed, and his lips pressed together into a thin, flat line. I'm in trouble already. It must be my classy fashion sense, naked grunge. Jared would be jealous. I don't feel so good, I said. Great way to start a conversation. I can see that. Do you want to tell me where you've been? Sensei Robert spoke softly, left his chair, and took the seat next to me. Forget the small talk. I heard too much. Just get to the point. I need a refund so I can get to Instacare. I don't have any money. I wiped my cheek, sticky with whatever still oozed out of the cut. Tell me about last night, Robert said. I didn't know what to say. How could I tell my sensei about my dad, about the baseball bat? The wall behind Sensei Robert's desk boasted championship trophies. He'd been a Marine. He knew how to fight. I felt shame and pathetic, but leaving was not an option. I needed that money. Tell me about last night, Robert said again, his voice firm. You went home. What happened? I had an accident, I whispered, too scared to tell the truth. I need a The police came to see me last night, Robert said. Bailey won again. Coming here had been a mistake. Sorry. They've been looking for you, Robert said. I didn't do anything wrong, I promise. I was so tired, I wanted to collapse, to cry, to crawl into some dark closet and never came out. Nice hat. Do you want to tell me about it? That hat that had started it all. I reached up and realized that I still wore it. The fear of the last 12 hours overwhelmed me for a moment, but I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't break down. I would retreat into the emotionless state that I used to survive high school. I'd be the vampire again, no matter the pain. I lost I finally said. The trophy. I know, Sensei Robert said. He nodded at his desk. The broken and melted parts of plastic that had been my only achievement lay in a baggie on his desk. My failure. Sensei Robert knew what had happened last night. He had the pieces, which meant he had gone to the house. He must have spoken with Bailey or Donna and heard whatever lies they told. And then the police talked to him about me. I panicked. Whatever Bailey said, it's not true. Take a deep breath. It's not true. It's why I started karate. He lies. It's not true. Breathe, Sensei Robert commanded. The door opened behind us, and Sensei looked up and nodded. I called Officer Lopez, and he's on his way. Jared's voice. I needed to hear it, but not the words he said. Even Jared called the police. Everybody hated me so much they wanted the police to take me away. What had Bailey told them? I had only wanted to get my hat. The vampire mask crumbled, but I could still be strong. It's not true, I said. They would never believe me. No one would. I had to get out of here and figure out how to get the money some other way. I tried to stand. No, you don't. Sensei Robert pushed me back into the chair. Jared's arms hugged me from behind, holding me down. You're safe now. You don't have to run anymore. I'm not letting you go. Careful. He's got glass in his hair, Sensei Robert said. I found your meter and your journal, Jared said, and I've never been more scared in my life. Why didn't you come home? Bailey would make, I said. Everybody believed it was my fault. I thought you hated me. I could never do that, Jared said, tightening his grip. Z stood by the door and looked at Sensei. Great. Everybody knew. One night, and my life had changed forever. I wanted to sleep, hide, run away to anywhere. You've been listening to Bailey too long. The police took him away. Do you have a headache? Jared whispered. I nodded and held his arm. My vision blurred as tears balled in my eyes, but I wouldn't cry. I had to be strong. Be the vampire. Jared moved my hair to one side and massaged my neck. He gently said, You haven't lost your touch. You know that? You hid from Officer Lopez and his friends for the entire night. And me too. I'm sorry. I didn't know what to do. I know. Jared kneaded my shoulders through the wet shirt and moved his way up to my temples. Z, get the door. Sensei Robert pointed at the approaching men leading a stretcher. Z ran and opened it for Officer Lopez and the EMTs. Where is he, Z? Lopez said. Sensei Robert's office, Dad. Why would somebody do this? Later. Let's get him some help first. Officer Lopez stepped aside, and the ambulance EMTs walked in with the stretcher. Jared. I stood at the second-story window of Mitch's room in the hospital, looking at the partly cloudy sky and the parking lot, and seeing neither. I wore Mitch's hat, and I was now known to all the staff as the grieving fiancé. Mitch would have loved the deception, had he been conscious. We're in a room with 2 beds, with Mitch lying in the bed by the window, and the other bed empty. A million x-rays, a portable sink to clean the glass out of his hair, some type of medication, an IV in his right arm, a cast on the left, bandages on hands and feet, liquid stitches and a butterfly bandage on his cheek, and Mitch still looked like crap. At least whatever they had given him made him sleep. The light blue sheets and hospital gown made the bruises look worse. It was so quiet that a funeral home would be loud by comparison. The room smelled of that horrible hospital smell, antiseptic and coffee and something medicinal. I hated coming here. A nurse came in on the hour, every hour, to check Mitch's blood sugar, the bruises, the monitors to the side of the bed. A bag with the remains of Mitch's shredded shirt, his briefs, and cup sat on a small table beside the bed, next to his journal. I had called the Java Dive and told them why I wouldn't be in. Then I called Harding's and updated them. Michaela and Joshua had stopped by on their way back to their place and said they would be back later. Even Sensei Robert had stopped by, and even Mrs. Harding came with a vase of flowers and a card that everyone at Mitch's work had signed. Mom said she'd pray, and found some sweats in the closet she'd send with Michaela and Josh when they got the ugly truck back to my place. The irony, Mitch had washed those sweats the last time he did laundry. What do you do when your best friend looks like he crawled out of a grave? If only I hadn't stopped to buy clothes. My floor was buried in them. I would have found Mitch at the tournament, and none of this would have happened. I couldn't find a way to apologize. And the worst part, I didn't even know what to say when Mitch woke up. At least Mitch didn't lie dead in a parking lot. I needed something to do before my mind drove me crazy. I picked up Mitch's precious diabetic journal, opened it to the first page, and scanned through the time logs and meter readings. Some of the higher numbers were starred. Was that good or bad? The next few pages were food logs, calorie counts, and carb counts, and food lists. There was a no-no list of foods, a list of safe foods with broccoli on the top. Poor Mitch. Broccoli is a safe food. I would have smiled had Mitch not looked the way he did. The next page was a list of payments for the ugly truck, and when Mitch would have it paid off. He circled the date 2 from the bottom. He'd paid it off 2 months earlier than he planned. I'm jealous. Then came more lists of foods, more carb counts, food logs, and more time logs. About a third of the way through, Mitch began including personal stuff. Stick figures in karate poses, names of karate styles, notes about what was needed for all the belt rankings, stick figure drawings of how to set up the G-Skyer. Then something that broke my heart. My name with a heart around it. I never figured Mitch to be a heart person. Beside it stood 2 more stick figures. One had fangs, and the other held a cup of coffee. They held hands. Mitch, I whispered, we have to get you an art class. The next set of pages held lyrics to screamo songs, a list titled Ways to Tell Jared the Truth, all the times he had tried and froze, a record of the arguments at home, an emergency plan to escape my house, a list of all the things he needed in his backpack for a quick escape, more hearts with a big one that read, Jared plus Mitch. A plan to live in his truck somewhere in case things got bad. Too late, things got bad. And interspersed with the rest were pages where he recorded his thoughts and feelings. How he wished he were a Parker, not a Lassiter. More entries about his feelings, not just about me, but his life, karate, the telescope. Then came a list titled People Who Know, with Donna and Bailey, Michaela, Joshua, Mrs. Parker, Raoul, Edmund, and Wes. Next to it was a very short list. People I wish I could tell. And it had only my name on it. Mine. A recent list of his favorite events included cleaning the backyard with me. He had loved it, loved being needed. Near the end of the journal, Mitch had detailed his plan for tonight and why the hat was so important. I read it and smiled, stared at the bruised and battered face. Just like Mitch. An overly elaborate plan so he could build up the courage. I grinned and stared at the motionless body on the bed. If only it had turned out. I turned the pride hat backwards, leaned forward, and turned to the next page with writing on it. That one didn't make me smile. It was a list titled Skateboarding Injuries, like slaps and punches and a broken rib. It had every time Bailey had hit him. 7 of the events had little black stars and Instacare next to them. The emotionless Mitch was filled with emotion, all fear. Damn Bailey. Mom had raised me not to hate anybody, but I learned how to when I finished that page. After the list, the journal had nothing but blank pages until the end of the book. On the last 3 pages, separate from all the other pages, was a letter to me and decorated with little hearts. It told me everything. Like Mitch hiding how he felt about being gay, his parents, the fights, the skateboarding accidents, the problems in high school, and how much he appreciated our friendship, even though it could never go past that. How sorry he was about not being a better friend, about never having the courage to say anything. The last paragraph, I wish I could tell you how much I love you and how much being friends with you means to me. It was dated 2 days ago and read like a final goodbye, and it was signed, Love, Mitch. I set the book down and held Mitch's right hand. Now I really didn't know what to say, but I knew Mitch needed me.